Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
It's 29 minutes after the hour of 7 o'clock. You know, you encounter people in your life and then you're so fascinated by them, you can't wait to see them over and over. Joan Underwood is one such for me. She is such an inspiration, but who is she? Let me just tell you a little bit about who she is. She is the managing director of Underwood Talent Development Services, which is an acclaimed consulting firm specializing in helping professionals, business enterprises, governments, in helping professionals, all of us really, to navigate our way towards being high performance individuals, teams and the like. And she's written this book. Yep, Manager's First Aid Kit. This book is great. I commend it to you. She joins me now as we take some time delving through chapter by chapter so we learn more. Joan, good morning to you.
Good morning, Pearson. I got to get you on my PR team.
There's a cost to that, just to let you know. But Joan, I started to read the book, and you know, it's interesting. Mornin Barbados has really put me back into reading a whole lot more. And I started to read your book. And in reading your book, I was riveted immediately. And it's because you tell it from your place of knowledge and experience. And I think for a lot of people who oftentimes pick up a book and read some technical jargon and you figure, hey, that person doesn't really quite know it, we can get you in this book.
Thank you so much, because that's exactly the spot I was aiming for.
Mm-hmm.
For years, I was the lecturer and facilitator at the Cahill School of Business. And, you know, we use texts that primarily are international. And of course, the theory is solid, but the relatability was lacking. So when I decided to write my book, I wanted to ensure that it was very relatable, that it was very practical, and that we as Caribbean people could see ourselves in the pages.
And I did. I saw myself immediately through the pages. Now, folks at home, I want you to get a copy of the book because week by week, you know, you can learn it with us. You can experience it with us as well. And it's broken down into 3 parts, several chapters, but 3 parts, looking at managing self, managing people, and managing processes. And ideally, that's what it is. And when you hear the word manager, don't become scared. Don't think, oh my goodness, that's for them. It's for all of us, because each of us, day in, day out, have to manage self. We have to manage others, whether it's our child or those with whom we relate. And we have to manage processes. What do we do with our time? How do we get this done far more efficiently? So it's a real practical, everyday guide for everybody to have. Do you agree?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, the extent to which that is the case has kind of caught me off guard. Because of course I knew my target audience, and you know, when you're writing, the people who know more about writing than I do, they advise that you have a specific person in mind when you're writing. Not even a category of people, but a specific person. So as I wrote each page, each chapter, I had someone in mind and I was like, okay, what do I need to share with her about this? After the book was launched last December, a particular category that I will tell you was not on my radar, you know, they came on board and they said, well, this is good for us too. And those are the entrepreneurs, because I was thinking about new supervisors, new managers, people who aspired to be managers. But the entrepreneurs, I mean, now I think, duh, of course, because they have to navigate the exact same terrain.
Yes, yes, indeed so. You started by very simply telling the story of Lydia. And while I don't want to give all away, tell us the story of Lydia so we can see clearly why walking this journey with you through this book is going to be a real godsend in navigating life.
Okay, so Lydia's real name is Jackie, and I used the name of the restaurant where she worked because I didn't know how she would respond to it, but she loves the book.
Yes.
So Lydia was an exceptional waitress at a hotel with which I was affiliated. I mean, she had the uncanny ability to remember everyone's name, and I struggle in that area, so I really admire people who could do it. And in addition to that, she made you feel, while she was interacting with you, she made you so important.
Yes.
So the hotel in question was the Jolly Beach Resort. And the people familiar with Antigua will know
Antigua,
the
yes.
Jolly Beach. And we get lots of repeat guests. Year after year, Jackie would remember people, their names, their backstories in terms of
Wow.
kids' names and what kids were doing. So people were just delighted to come back and to interact with Jackie. So there came a point in time when Jackie was promoted. So from waitress, she became maitre d' of the restaurant. Unfortunately, she wasn't prepared, as are the majority of managers, new managers, unfortunately. She was rewarded for being a great waitress by being put in a position that was outside her comfort zone.
Yes.
So what happened when the restaurant got busy? She would revert to doing what she knew how to do exceptionally well. So she would become another waitress, an uber efficient waitress, but another waitress. So what wasn't happening? She wasn't planning, she wasn't leading, she wasn't organizing, and she wasn't controlling. So for someone looking at what was happening in the restaurant, it looked as if no one was in control.
Right.
So fortunately for me, Jackie was a friend, not just someone that I saw and admired. And so I spoke to her about some training and development, and she went on to pursue the Carib certification, and she now lives in the U.S. where she's doing exceptionally well and has started her own catering business. So there's a happy ending
That's
for
great.
Lydia,
So what's the
aka Jackie.
lesson? What's the lesson in that experience of Lydia that you think we can all draw from?
Preparation. Proper preparation prevents poor performance.
Indeed.
And when you are a member of line staff, a technical worker, a knowledge worker, a hands-on worker, the knowledge, skills, and abilities you need to succeed there are not the same ones you need for the next level up when you become a manager. So, and this message is not for the individual employees, it's for the organizations, the employers as well, because we have an obligation to prepare our people to succeed. You don't want to performer by putting them into a situation where they're going to struggle. But
Yes.
unfortunately, that is what happens more often than not.
And you know, it's a part of it too is incumbent on the individual to know whether or not they believe themselves suitable for the advancement. And I'll use one example, I can't call her name, from my past experience, another job I would have done, where there was this, and this was in banking. She was super good at being a teller, really, really good. Everybody loved her, very efficient, on top. And then the opportunity was given to her for advancement to be a supervisor. And she says, no, I don't, that's not for me. I'm better, I think, doing what I'm doing. And you know, gratefully enough, the bank recognized her for that. And so her salary moved up. She wasn't stuck at that particular pay grade all the time. Her salary moved up given the fact of her experience and what she is offering to the organization as well. So yes, you're right. Organizations need to recognize the skill sets and whether or not they can provide the skill sets, the training to assist the person for advancement, or they can simply just leave it be and just reward them handsomely because they are effective at what they're doing. That's a tough one for any manager to really begin to grapple with.
But it's so important, and I'll come back because I'm a big advocate for taking ownership of your own journey. So we'll talk about what the organization needs to do, but we also focus on what the individual needs to do.
Right.
And this is an opportunity for us to mention that term, emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Because self-awareness is so important. So your colleague that you just shared that story about, she clearly had a high level of self-awareness. She knew that's not me. That's not where my strengths lie. That's not what I aspire to. With all that self awareness, she could have found herself going into the new role, a managerial role, being unhappy with it, and then struggling because she didn't have the requisite competencies to succeed. So self awareness, integral component of emotional intelligence, and that's why the book starts with managing self.
You know, emotional intelligence is a term that a lot of people hear bandied about, and it just flies somewhere in the atmosphere and we don't know what it is, you know. And then could you break that down so that we can understand how self-awareness and those self-management and a whole host of things fall within emotional intelligence?
Absolutely. So let me begin by saying why it's important so that persons will realize that, listen, when I see it flying around, I need to hold on to it. So emotional intelligence is the research has shown, it's the single most valid and reliable predictor of leadership success. So that's why it's important. Another wonderful thing about it is that you can develop it. Unlike your IQ, which is essentially fixed, with your EQ or EI, you can develop it. So if you find that you're lacking in it now, you can make a conscious decision to rectify that. So there are four components in the simplest model, the one I use in the book, and I'll share it now. And it begins with self-awareness, as I mentioned before. Following on self-awareness, you have self-management or self-regulation. So you know yourself and you're able to regulate or control how you show up. The other two components relate to other. So the first two components relate to self, and then the other two relate to other. So you need, in addition to aware of your own emotions as you experience them and as you express them, it's important to be able to read the emotions of others.
Others, yes.
And that's something that, unfortunately, not everyone can do. So you need to have self-awareness, self-regulation, awareness of the emotions of others, and then the interpersonal relationships. Because at the end of the day, every leader should realize that it's all about relationships. Whether it's family, whether it's work, church, community, human beings, we're social beings, and it's all about getting things done with and through others. So the quality of the relationships that you're able to have will help to determine your level of success.
Oh my goodness, that just made some people very uncomfortable because oftentimes they'll say to you, yeah, we don't have to be friends. We're not friends, as a matter of fact. And so right away you create a barrier, a mental block, an emotional block that says you and I will never get along, and as a consequence, I will never work for you nor with you. And so how do we break that down so that the individual who has responsibility for involving others, for motivating others, reach across and say, you know what, let me help you. Let's help each other. How do we break that down?
All right. Let's make the distinction between being friends and being friendly. I don't need to come to your home. Don't need to come to mine. We don't need to call each other. Well, nobody calls anybody. No, we don't need to be WhatsApping, and on each other's timeline and that.
Yes.
But we do need to be friendly towards each other. And we'll get to this a little later on, but there's some essential building blocks that will help to ensure that we have mutually beneficial relationships.
Joan, we're going to take a break here. When I come back, we want to continue this discussion on chapter 1 because I think it is so critical that everybody absorbs all of it. But as we go to break, could you tell us quickly how to get a copy of the book so that they can start to follow along with us?
Okay, great. So you can check Day's bookstore. So they're available in store there. If you're someone who prefers to have an electronic copy of the book, you can go to my website, which is utdsinc.com, or you can also get it via Amazon. But why would you do that? And I'm right here in Barbados with the book, so you can also reach out to me on any one of my social media platforms, LinkedIn,
Yes.
Instagram, or Facebook, and we can arrange a delivery.
Indeed. So, folks, we're going to come right back and continue with this wonderful lady, Joan Underwood, as we continue to look at the manager's first aid kit to being a much better leader. We're coming right back after this.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
I'm so enjoying this, I almost forgot something. But Joan, we're back together again. Joan Underwood is the author of the book Manager's First Aid Kit, practical guide to remedy the 3 most common managerial challenges: self, others, and processes. And in managing oneself, sometimes you have to be a little bit more aware of who you are and how others perceive you. And, sometimes it's not easy to hear how others critique you.
Indeed. And we all have blind
You
spots.
got that right.
Okay. And it can be uncomfortable when people move information from our unknown area to our known area.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if we didn't solicit their input, but they decide they're going to tell us
Anyway,
way.
that's right.
But I choose to see feedback as a gift, even if it makes you a bit uncomfortable, because it's information you now have that you didn't have before. So it tells you how people are perceiving you, the stories people are telling themselves about you. And so once you become aware of it, if it doesn't align with your intentions, then you now have the opportunity to do something about it, as opposed to being oblivious. People still are thinking what they're thinking.
Yes.
You're just not aware of it. So you can't do anything about it.
Wow. That was for me very, very, very powerful, to hear what others think of you. Because you have one perception of yourself from your mirror, your own personal mirror, but then others see you with their natural eyes in a completely different light. And I'll tell you what they say about me. They say I'm stubborn. I don't feel stubborn, but I think when I stop for just a moment, there are things about which I stick to. And that's where I guess my stubbornness will show itself. So yeah, to have that blind spot and to be able to have that light shone on the blind spot helps. It's truly a gift to
Yeah.
receive feedback. You also go on in chapter 1 to talk about the communication spectrum. I found that also very, very fascinating. Walk us through that spectrum.
Okay, so the spectrum I refer to covers from being submissive to being assertive to being aggressive. And let's put some definitions on that. And I will start with assertive, which is where, I encourage people to aim for. Someone who is being assertive expresses his or her opinions, thoughts, and feelings in a way that allows space for other people to do the same. So assertive, you're expressing yourself and you're leaving space for others to do the same. Contrast that with aggressive now. You're still expressing your thoughts, feelings, etc., but you're doing so in a way that doesn't leave any bandwidth for anyone else to similarly express themselves.
Yes.
So you're sucking up all the oxygen out of the air. What you say, it's as if it's handed down from heaven on tablets of stone. And so that's the end of the conversation. That's aggressive. Submissive, on the other hand, you don't express your thoughts, feelings, etc., but rather cater to those of others. So, again, from submissive to assertive to aggressive. And there is some subjectivity in it because you may think, oh, I'm being assertive, but someone else may say, but I don't feel comfortable expressing
Yes.
given how you're showing up. So here again, feedback is important, and being careful whether or not there's a blind spot and you're not showing up in the way that you intend to. And it's really important, and I emphasize it coaching clients all the time. You cannot see somebody's intent. So you can't know intent for sure. What you know is impact. So you may not have the intention to be aggressive, but if the impact is that the other people don't feel that they have the scope to express themselves, then that's their reality. You're showing up as
Yes.
being aggressive.
Yes. So true. And then the chapter ends, as each chapter would, with some self-reflection exercises. So, folks, I really want you to get a copy of the book. You can go to Day's bookstore. You can go there and get a copy of the book. It's called Manager's First Aid Kit, Practical Guide to Remedy the 3 Most Common Managerial Challenges. It's there on your screen. That's what it looks like. Or you can go to Joan's website, which is utdsinc.com, UNTDSINC.com, and order your book from there, and Joan will have it delivered to you. Hint, hint. Or you can contact her yourself, and if you're somewhere across the world, you can go onto Amazon and you can order the book there as well, because the information inside is going to be very rich and very useful. And so next week we want to pick up from there, Joan, and continue on to the next chapter as we all together work towards creating a better working environment, creating a far more effective and productive working environment, which I know you're also passionate about. So as usual, Thank you so much, Joan. I'll see you next week. God spare life. Thank you.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much. And
You're
be
very
safe,
welcome.
Barbados, and everyone else as well.
You're welcome. Joan Underwood. Get the book today. Let's talk about it some more.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning.